The Alpha King moved then. He did not walk. He glided, silent as death, graceful as a predator. He crossed the clearing until he stood directly in front of her. Up close, he was even more terrifying. His face was sharp and cold, carved from ice and cruelty, and his silver eyes looked down at her with... The snow had been falling for 3 hours, but Lena hardly felt the cold anymore. Her knees pressed into the frozen ground, and the thin ceremonial dress they had forced her to wear gave her no protection from the mountain wind. She kept her eyes down, watching small snowflakes melt against her pale skin, because looking up meant seeing them, the wolves, the circle of death that was slowly closing around her. This was the ancient law, the Provalupi, the trial of wolves. When an Omega was rejected by her destined mate during the sacred bonding ceremony, the pack had to decide if she deserved to live, not with words or votes, but with teeth and instinct. If the wolves attacked, she died. If they backed away, she would be thrown out, marked as rejected, and left to survive alone in the wild. Lena had always known she was different, weaker than the other Omegas, smaller, quieter. Her wolf had never fully appeared, never given her the strength that even the lowest Omega should have. When Marcus, the beta she had been matched with since childhood, stood before the entire Silverpaw pack and spoke the words of rejection, she had not been surprised. Embarrassed, heartbroken, but not surprised. I, Marcus of the Silverpaw pack, reject you, Lena, as my mate. You are not worthy of carrying my bloodline. You are not worthy of this pack. The words still echoed in her mind as she knelt in the snow, surrounded by 12 of the pack's most dangerous enforcers in their wolf forms. She could hear them breathing, see their eyes glowing in the dim twilight, smell their hunger for violence. Some of them had always hated her. Now they had permission to act on it. Her grandmother had told her stories about the trial of wolves when she was young, how in the old days it was meant to be merciful, a quick death for those too weak to survive rejection. But over the centuries it had become sport, entertainment. The pack would gather to watch, placing bets on how long the rejected Omega would last, whether she would beg or stay silent, whether the wolves would make it quick or draw it out. Lena had chosen silence. She would not give them the satisfaction of her screams. The largest wolf, a scarred gray beast named Rorik, took a step closer. His lips pulled back from his fangs, a low growl rumbling from his chest. The others began to move together, tightening the circle. This was it. They had made their decision. She was going to die. Lena closed her eyes and thought of her grandmother, the only person who had ever loved her. She had died 2 winters ago, and Lena had been alone ever since. Maybe this was better. Maybe death was kinder than living as a rejected Omega, scorned and broken. The growling grew louder. She could feel their presence, so close now that their breath created small clouds in the frozen air. She braced herself for the pain, for the feeling of teeth sinking into her flesh. But it did not come. Instead, the growling stopped suddenly, completely. The sudden silence was so total that Lena could hear her own heartbeat pounding in her ears. She opened her eyes slowly, confused. The wolves had frozen, not backed away, but stopped mid-motion as if an invisible force had turned them to stone. Their ears were pinned back, their tails low, their bodies trembling, not with anger, but with submission, with fear. Lena felt it then, a presence so powerful that it made the air itself feel heavy. The temperature seemed to drop another 10 degrees, and the snow began to fall harder, faster, as if the sky itself was reacting to something unnatural. She turned her head slowly, following the wolf's line of sight. He stood at the edge of the clearing, barely visible through the falling snow. Tall, impossibly tall, with silver hair that seemed to glow against the darkness. He wore no coat despite the freezing temperature, just dark clothes that looked like they belonged to royalty. But it was his eyes that made Lena's breath catch in her throat. They were not the golden amber of a normal wolf. They were silver, pure, brilliant silver that seemed to pierce through the darkness and see everything. The Alpha King. Lena had never seen him before. She had only heard whispers and legends, the most powerful werewolf in the Northern Territories, a king who ruled over dozens of packs, who could kill with a thought, and whose very presence made alphas bow. He never visited small packs like Silverpaw. There was no reason for him to be here, Yet here he was, standing in silence, watching her. The wolves in the circle began to back away, whimpering, their bravery completely gone. Even Rorik, the most dangerous of them all, lowered his head and backed up, his tail tucked between his legs. Within seconds, the circle had broken, the wolves disappearing into the forest, leaving Lena alone on her knees in the snow, an expression she could not read. Lena tried to lower her gaze to show submission as she had been taught, but she found she could not look away. Something in those eyes held her captive, demanded her attention, refused to let her hide. "Stand," he said. His voice was quiet, barely more than a whisper, but it carried total authority. Lena's body obeyed before her mind could process the command. She stood on shaking legs, her bare feet numb from the cold, her dress soaked through and clinging to her skin. He studied her in silence, his gaze traveling over her face, her body, lingering on places that made her cheeks burn despite the cold. She felt exposed, vulnerable, like he could see every secret she had ever kept, every weakness she had ever hidden. "What is your name?" he asked. "Lena," she whispered. Her voice cracked from not speaking and from the cold. Lena of no pack. Something flickered in his eyes. Anger, maybe, or recognition. She could not tell. "Who rejected you?" "Marcus, Beta of the Silverpaw Pack." He had every right to. "I am weak. I am not worthy of—" "Silence!" The command cracked through the air like a whip. Lena's mouth snapped shut, her heart racing. She had said something wrong. She was going to die anyway, just by a king's hand instead of wolves' teeth. But he did not strike her. Instead, he took a step closer, so close that she could feel the heat coming from his body, could smell the scent of winter pine and something ancient and powerful that made her wolf. Her broken, silent wolf stir for the first time in years. "You are not weak," he said, his voice dropping even lower. "You have been suppressed." "There is a difference." Lena blinked, confused. "I don't understand." He reached out then, slowly, giving her time to pull away if she wanted to. When she did not move, his hand came to rest against the side of her neck, his fingers cool against her freezing skin. The moment he touched her, something inside Lena's chest exploded. It was not pain. It was recognition. A bond snapping into place with such force that she gasped, her knees nearly giving out. She could feel him, not just his physical presence, but his emotions, his power, his very soul connecting with hers. The mate bond. But that was impossible. She had been rejected. The bond with Marcus had been broken. She should never feel this again, unless Marcus had never been her true mate at all. "No," she breathed, shaking her head. "This cannot be real." The Alpha King's lips curved into something that might have been a smile, but there was no warmth in it, only dark satisfaction. "You are mine," he said simply. "You have always been mine, and anyone who told you otherwise will answer to me." Before Lena could respond, before she could even process what he was saying, the sound of footsteps crunching through snow made them both turn. A group of wolves came out of the forest, returning to human form as they got closer. At the front was Marcus, her former betrothed, his face pale with shock. Behind him was Alpha Theron of the Silverpaw Pack, an older man with gray streaking his dark hair. They both dropped to one knee immediately, heads bowed. "Your Majesty," Alpha Theron said, his voice shaking, "we had no idea you would be visiting us. If you had known, you would have what?" The king interrupted, his voice still quiet but now carrying an edge of violence that made everyone in the clearing flinch. "Hidden your barbaric traditions? Pretended you do not force rejected Omegas to kneel in the snow while your wolves decide whether to tear them apart?" "It is the old law, Your Majesty," Theron said carefully. "The Provolupi has been practiced for centuries. We were simply following—" "The old law is abolished," the king said. "As of this moment, any pack that attempts the trial of wolves will be disbanded and their alpha executed. Is that clear?" Silence, then quickly, "Yes, Your Majesty." "Perfectly clear." The king's attention shifted to Marcus, who was still kneeling, his head down. "You rejected her." It was not a question, but Marcus answered anyway. "Yes, Your Majesty, I had the right to." "You had no right," the king said, his voice dropping to something dangerous. Because she was never yours to reject. She carries the bloodline of the moon blessed. She is descended from the first wolves, the ancient ones who walked these lands before packs existed. That is why her wolf has been silent. The power is too great for her to access without proper training, without someone strong enough to guide her through the awakening. Lena's mind was spinning. Moon-blessed? Ancient bloodline? She was nobody, the weakest Omega in the pack. How could any of this be true? Your Majesty, Alpha Theron said hesitantly. If I may, the girl's family has been in this pack for generations. Her grandmother never mentioned any. Her grandmother was protecting her, the king interrupted. The moon-blessed have been hunted to near extinction by those who fear their power. Do you think she would announce it to a pack that would see her granddaughter as a threat? He paused, his silver eyes returning to Lena. But she told the girl stories, did she not? Taught her the old language, gave her a necklace with a moon symbol that she was told never to remove. Lena's hand instinctively went to her throat, where her grandmother's necklace hung beneath the soaked dress. She had never taken it off, even though she did not fully understand why grandmother had made her promise to keep it hidden. How do you know this? She whispered. The king's expression softened just slightly. Because I have been searching for you for 5 years. Since the moment I became king and gained access to the old records, the family trees that track the ancient bloodlines, I knew you existed. I knew you were out here somewhere, hidden and unaware of what you truly are. And when I felt the shift in the bond tonight, when I felt your life in danger, I came. He turned back to Marcus and Alpha Theron, and the softness vanished, replaced by cold fury. You tried to kill my mate. You put her through a death trial because you were too ignorant to recognize what she is. Give me one reason why I should not burn this entire pack to the ground. The clearing fell silent. Even the wind seemed to stop, waiting for the answer. Alpha Theron looked gray, his hands shaking. Marcus had gone completely white, his eyes wide with terror. Mercy, Your Majesty, Theron finally said, his voice breaking. We did not know. We would never have... Ignorance is not innocence, the king said. But I will offer you a choice. Swear loyalty to me directly. Disband the Silverpaw Pack and become part of the Northern Crown Pack. You will be retrained, re-educated, and any member who refuses to abandon the old barbaric ways will be exiled. Or refuse, and face execution. What will it be? We swear loyalty, Theron said immediately, pressing his forehead to the snow. The Silverpaw Pack is yours, Your Majesty. We are yours. The others, including Marcus, quickly followed, repeating the words of loyalty. Lena watched it all in stunned silence, unable to process how enormous this was. Her entire world had been torn apart and rebuilt in the span of minutes. The king seemed satisfied with their submission. He turned back to Lena, and this time when he looked at her, there was something almost gentle in his expression. Can you walk? He asked. She nodded, even though her legs felt like they might give out at any moment. Good. Come with me. You are done with this place. He held out his hand, and Lena stared at it for a long moment. This was insane. He was the Alpha King. She was nobody. This had to be some kind of mistake, some cruel joke that would end with her back in the snow, alone and rejected. But the bond in her chest was real. She could feel it humming with life and certainty. And when she looked into those silver eyes, she saw no lies, only conviction. Slowly, she placed her hand in his. His fingers closed around hers, warm and solid, and the bond flared brighter. He pulled her close, wrapping his coat around her shoulders, and she realized he must have made it appear somehow, because she had not seen him wearing it a moment ago. It was heavy and warm, and it smelled like him. Pine and snow and something wild and ancient. What is your name? She asked quietly as he began to lead her away from the clearing, away from the pack that had tried to kill her. I know you are the Alpha King, but what is your name? He glanced down at her, and for the first time, she saw a real smile cross his face. It changed him, made him look less like a terrifying force of nature and more like a man. A dangerously handsome man, but still a man. Kyle, he said. My name is Kyle, and you, Lena of the Moon Blessed, are going to be my queen. The journey to Kyle's territory took 3 days by car. traveling through mountain passes and thick forests until they reached the heart of the northern Crown Packlands. Lena had never been this far from Silverpaw territory, had never seen anything beyond the small valley where she had spent her entire life. The world was so much bigger than she had imagined, and she felt smaller with every mile they traveled. Kyle did not speak much during the journey. He sat beside her in the back of the sleek black vehicle, his attention mostly on various documents and reports that his advisors kept bringing him at every stop. But his hand never left hers. Even when he was reading or speaking to others, his fingers remained linked with hers, a constant reminder of the bond between them. Lena spent most of the journey staring out the window, trying to process everything that had happened. According to Kyle, she was descended from the Moon-Blessed, an ancient bloodline of wolves with extraordinary power. Her grandmother had known, had hidden her to keep her safe from those who would hunt her. And Kyle, through some miracle or fate, had found her just in time. But why had her grandmother never told her? Why had she let Lena grow up thinking she was broken and weak? The question spun through her mind, unanswered and impossible to answer now that grandmother was gone. When they finally arrived at the Northern Crown Pack compound, Lena could barely believe what she was seeing. It was not a simple collection of cabins like Silverpaw territory. It was a fortress carved into the side of a mountain, with massive stone walls and towers that reached toward the sky. Wolves patrolled the walls, and she could feel the power coming from the place, ancient and unbreakable. "This is your home now," Kyle said as they passed through the main gates. "You are safe here. No one will ever hurt you again." He led her through hallways of polished stone, past tapestries showing great battles and legendary wolves, until they reached a suite of rooms that was larger than the entire house she had shared with her grandmother. The bedroom alone was enormous, with a 4-poster bed piled high with furs and a fireplace already crackling with warmth. "Rest," Kyle said, releasing her hand for the first time since they left the clearing. "You have been through a lot. My healer will come to check on you, and then tomorrow we will begin your training." "Training?" Lena asked. "To awaken your wolf," he explained. "To teach you how to access the power that has been asleep inside you all your life. It will not be easy, but I will be with you every step of the way." He turned to leave, but Lena found herself reaching out, catching his sleeve. He stopped, looking back at her with those piercing silver eyes. "Why?" she asked softly. "Why did you search for me? Why do you care about a bloodline that was hunted to extinction? What do you want from me?" For a long moment, Kyle said nothing. Then he stepped closer, lifting his hand to cup her face with a gentleness that seemed at odds with his fearsome reputation. "I want nothing from you except what you freely give," he said quietly. "But I will tell you this, Lena. The moment I read your name in those ancient records, the moment I confirmed you existed, my wolf knew we were meant to find each other. And when I felt you in danger tonight, when I felt your despair and resignation through the bond that had not even fully formed yet, I would have torn through armies to reach you. So do not ask me why I care. The answer is simple. You are mine, and I protect what is mine." His thumb brushed across her cheek, wiping away a tear she had not realized had fallen. Then he stepped back, his expression returning to its usual controlled mask. "Sleep. Lena, tomorrow your real life begins." He left, closing the door softly behind him, and Lena stood alone in the enormous room, trying to understand the fact that she was no longer a rejected Omega waiting to die in the snow. She was the mate of the Alpha King, descendant of an ancient bloodline, and apparently meant for something far greater than she had ever imagined. She sank onto the edge of the massive bed, her body finally realizing how tired she was. As she lay back against the soft furs, she could still feel Kyle's presence through the bond, a steady warmth in her chest that chased away the lingering cold. For the first time in years, Lena felt something she had almost forgotten. Hope. The training began the next morning, just after dawn. Kyle came to her rooms personally, dressed in simple dark clothing suitable for movement. He led her through the fortress and out into a private clearing surrounded by tall pines, where the morning mist still clung to the ground. "The reason your wolf has been silent is because the moon-blessed power is too intense for an untrained Omega to control," Kyle explained as they stood in the center of the clearing. Your body has been holding it back instinctively to protect you from burning out. But that suppression has made you appear weak when in reality you are anything but. How do we fix it? Lena asked. We do not fix it. We teach you to control it. He moved behind her, placing his hands on her shoulders. Close your eyes. Feel the bond between us. Use it as an anchor. Lena obeyed, closing her eyes and focusing inward. The bond was easy to find. A golden thread of connection that ran from her chest to his. The moment she focused on it, it flared brighter, and she felt Kyle's presence more clearly than ever. His strength, his confidence, his total certainty that she could do this. Now reach deeper, he instructed, his voice low and soothing. Past the bond, down into the place where your wolf sleeps. She is there, Lena. She has always been there. You just need to wake her. Lena had tried this before, countless times over the years, always with the same result. Nothing. Just empty silence where her wolf should be. But this time, with Kyle's hands on her shoulders and the bond humming between them, she felt something different. A flicker. A spark of awareness that had never been there before. I feel something, she whispered. Good. Do not force it. Just let her know you are ready. Let her know it is safe to come out. Lena focused on that flicker, on the tiny spark of consciousness that felt both foreign and familiar. She reached toward it, not with force, but with welcome, with acceptance. And slowly, so slowly, it began to grow. The sensation was overwhelming. Power flooded through her body, raw and ancient and so intense that she gasped, her eyes flying open. Her skin began to glow with a soft silver light, and she could feel her bones shifting, her muscles strengthening, her senses sharpening to an impossible degree. That's it, Kyle said, his voice filled with satisfaction. Do not fight it. Let it flow through you. But the power was too much. It was like trying to hold an ocean in a teacup. Lena felt herself beginning to panic, felt the control slipping away, felt the power threatening to tear her apart from the inside out. Kyle, she gasped. I cannot. It is too much. His arms came around her immediately, pulling her back against his chest. Yes, you can. You are moon-blessed, Lena. This power is your birthright. Breathe. Focus on my voice. Focus on the bond. Use me as your anchor. She grabbed onto the bond like a lifeline, pouring the excess power into it, letting it flow from her into him and back again in a stable loop. The panic began to fade, replaced by a sense of balance. The power was still there, still huge, but now it felt manageable, controlled. Better? Kyle asked. Lena nodded, not trusting her voice. She could feel her wolf now, fully present and aware for the first time in her life. It was glorious. It was terrifying. It was everything she had never known she was missing. They trained for hours, with Kyle teaching her how to call on her power in controlled bursts, how to shift partially without losing herself to the wolf, how to sense other wolves nearby and figure out their intentions. By the time the sun reached its highest point, Lena was exhausted but thrilled. She had done it. She had awakened her wolf. You are a natural, Kyle said as they walked back toward the fortress. In a few months, you will be stronger than most alphas. In a year, there will be few who could challenge you. I still cannot believe this is real, Lena admitted. A week ago, I was preparing to die. Now I am mine, Kyle finished, stopping to look at her. You are mine, Lena, and I am yours. The bond goes both ways. Whatever you need, whatever you want, you have only to ask. Lena looked up at him, at this powerful king who had crossed mountains to save her, who had abolished ancient laws to protect her, who had spent the entire morning patiently teaching her to control powers she had not known she had. The bond between them hummed with warmth and certainty. But there was still so much she did not know about him. What do you want, Kyle? She asked. You said you want nothing from me except what I freely give. But what do you want? He was quiet for a long moment, his silver eyes searching hers. Then he reached out, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear with surprising gentleness. I want you to be happy, he said simply. I want you to feel safe. I want you to grow into your power and become the queen you were meant to be. And someday, when you are ready, I want you to choose me. Not because of the bond, but because you want to. The honesty in his voice made something in Lena's chest tighten. She had expected a king to be demanding, possessive, controlling. But Kyle was giving her a choice, giving her time, giving her the space to make her own decisions. "I think," she said softly, "I might already be choosing you." His eyes flared silver, bright and fierce, and then he was kissing her, not gently, not carefully, but with a passion that stole her breath and made her knees weak. She kissed him back with equal intensity, pouring all her confusion and gratitude and growing affection into it, feeling the bond between them blaze like a star. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Kyle rested his forehead against hers. "You are going to be magnificent," he whispered, "and I'm going to spend the rest of my life making sure you never forget it." 6 months passed like a dream. Lena trained every day, growing stronger and more confident with each passing week. Her wolf, once silent and asleep, was now a constant presence, powerful and fierce and completely devoted to protecting what was theirs. The bond with Kyle deepened, evolving from a mystical connection into genuine love built on trust and respect and countless hours spent together. The official mating ceremony was held on the winter solstice under a full moon that seemed to shine just for them. Wolves from every pack in the northern territories came to witness the union of their king and his moon-blessed queen. Lena wore a dress of silver and white, with her grandmother's necklace gleaming at her throat. And when Kyle placed his mark on her neck, claiming her before the entire assembly, she felt nothing but joy. The old laws were gone, replaced by new ones that protected Omegas and punished those who would abuse them. The Silver Paw Pack, now absorbed into the Northern Crown Pack, had adapted quickly under Kyle's rule. Even Marcus, her former betrothed, had apologized publicly for his rejection, though Lena barely remembered his name anymore. He was part of a past that felt like it belonged to someone else entirely. On the night of the ceremony, as she stood on the balcony of their private chambers, looking out over the snow-covered mountains, Kyle came up behind her and wrapped his arms around her waist. "Do you ever regret it?" he asked quietly. "Leaving your old life behind?" Lena turned in his arms, looking up at the man who had saved her, trained her, loved her, and believed in her when no one else would. "I regret nothing," she said firmly. "That girl who knelt in the snow waiting to die, she is gone. I am someone new now, someone stronger, someone who knows her worth." She reached up, cupping his face. "And I have you to thank for that." Kyle smiled, that rare, genuine smile that he saved only for her. "You always had that strength, Lena. I just helped you find it." "Then thank you," she whispered, "for finding me." He kissed her then, soft and sweet and full of promise. And as the moon shone down on them, blessing their union, Lena knew that she had finally found where she belonged, not as a rejected Omega, not as a victim, but as a queen, as a moon-blessed, as someone who had survived the trial by wolves and come out stronger than ever. She was no longer the girl who knelt in the snow. She was the woman who stood beside a king. And together, they would build a kingdom where no Omega would ever have to face a circle of wolves alone again. If you enjoyed this story, please subscribe to the channel for more werewolf romance tales, alpha kings, rejected mates, and powerful Omega stories. Hit the notification bell so you never miss an upload. Leave a comment below telling me what you thought of Lena and Kyle's story and what kind of werewolf stories you'd like to see next. Your support means everything and helps me create more content like this. Thank you for reading, and I'll see you in the next one.